Yeah.
For sure.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Zack. I'm an alcoholic, and like Adrian, I am with GCYPAA. Yeah, so it's been a little bit since I told my story, and I don't think that I've done it in a 20-minute time frame. So I'm gonna give this a shot and see how it goes. But yeah, so I've been sober since October 27, 2011. So I guess it'll be 11 years in 2 months. And I got sober when I was young. I was 18, and on that note, I guess I'll just hop into it. So, yeah, when I was like, and I'm gonna skip a lot of like the born to like drug stuff because it's just not super relevant. Nothing crazy happened at all. So I moved to Georgia when I was in 7th grade. And when I first got here, it was just a big change, and I didn't know quite how to adjust. So to me, what I did to deal with that was, in school, I became like, I don't know, like a class jester, like trying to be funny, trying to like get attention and like mess with teachers and stuff like that. And this was pre-drugs, so before I found drugs, I kept getting kicked out of schools, just, being a dickhead, honestly. And yeah, I mean, it just dumb little things that I found funny personally that, the dean at the school did not quite to enjoy as much as I did. Um, so then, I got kicked out of this school, went to a different one, kicked out of this school, went to a different one. And I think at that point I was just like depressed because I'd make a friend group and then like move to a different school and then have to start over. And in 9th grade, I just remember being like, this just sucks. Like I'm so sick of doing this. And this kid that rode the bus was like, hey, like me and this kid are gonna go smoke weed. Do you want to join? And at that point, I was like, yeah, like I'll do literally anything to like be around people and whatever. So, went over and did that, and it was a great time. I mean, I walked away from that and I was like, this is kind of it. Like I don't feel this anxiety, I don't feel this depression. Like I just kind of feel like I belong. Which is something that even if I had friends, I never really felt before. It always felt like there was just something missing. Um, so continue doing that, and for the first year my grades were fine. I even chilled out, like I stopped getting kicked out of schools. It seemed to be like very helpful for me just in general. But fast forward maybe 1 or 2 years and I found myself really liking Xanax, and like I found myself really liking all sorts of other drugs. By the way, alcohol is my DOC, but I, for whatever reason, skirted around that and then ended up getting back to alcohol, which is maybe different from other people. But was doing all these drugs, and obviously things were getting out of control. Like this time I was getting kicked out of a school for like being drunk in class. I wasn't so much funny as I was entirely intoxicated. And at this point my parents had concerns, so they sent me to my first treatment center. That didn't stick. And then maybe 4 or 5 treatment centers later, and I'm skipping a lot of like detail because it just doesn't matter. Like I did a lot of dumb stuff, and we all did. Like it's not super relevant, but yeah, I mean, I just through pills and alcohol and weed found myself having fun and kind of, I don't know, getting arrested and stuff like that. So eventually I made my way to this treatment center that was full of young people, and I had no intention of getting sober. But the thing that was different was they really valued having fun in recovery. Um, and not like chaperone fun. It would be like, let's go to Tybee Island with no counselors present and like do weird shit. And I was all for that. Like that's exactly what I needed. I needed, for whatever reason, I don't recommend this to any newcomers, but I needed to kind of feel that like I still had the option to do insane things. And that really worked for me. The fact that I could be sober, have a good life, and also have fun made it very appealing to me. And I remember looking around the treatment center, and I mean, I just for the first like month or two, I just didn't believe that anyone was sober. They all seemed happy. They were like laughing at jokes. They were being funny, and I was like, this doesn't make any earthly sense as to how you are enjoying your life without a lot of alcohol in your system. But turns out they were, and you know, that was very appealing. So I almost got kind of tricked into being sober. I just wanted to hang out with these guys who like did fun stuff. And then lo and behold, like a year later, like I had a year sober, you know. And from then on, like it just kept getting better. I mean, you know, the first time through the steps, I, you know, went through 1 through 12, obviously, as we all probably do. And yeah, I got to the other end, and through that in living life on a daily basis and taking certain actions, I just remember walking around with this feeling of like I'm fine, like everything is okay, and nothing's really missing. I don't feel like like this burden on society, like I'm a part of it, like I'm an active participant. Like I was in school, I was working. I mean, I did get fired a lot in early recovery because I was a pretty shitty employee, to be completely honest. But you know, that stuff got worked out over time. Um, and you know, like while there are many trials and errors in early recovery, I mean, things just got better and better and better. Um, you know, and for whatever reason, you know, because a lot of, I think, my story, because I've been sober longer than I've been getting high, really takes place in recovery. YPAA is heavily related, but you know, I think it was around maybe 5 years. I got this theory that I'm like good now, that I've done it. I'm like satisfied. Things are going well, and in whatever area you can think of, things are going well. And you know, at that point, I was like, yeah, like, you know, this whole God thing's really cool, and I really needed that, but like, I got it from here. So like, thanks God, I really appreciate it. But you know, I'm gonna go ahead and run the show because clearly I'm the one who did this. And I seriously fast forward 3 years, and I'm looking back like, what the fuck happened? Like, what? Why does everything suck? You know. And it's funny because a lot of those things, you know, like girl stuff and job stuff and money stuff, like those things were for whatever reason getting better, but I found myself just dead inside like all the time. Um, and you know, it was maybe 2 Novembers ago when there was this one. It was very sad what happened. So I was living with these two guys. We had a house, and you know, it was fun, like really good friends. I'd known them both for like 8 years, and there was one guy who me and him had a lot in common. And this is still the same time when I'm running the show. Things look good on the outside, but I'm kind of dying, you know, like I'm just not okay in really any way. um and my friend is the exact same way, you know, if not longer. And you know, me and him would talk about things, we'd relate, we'd be like, yeah, this sucks, but like prayer, that's so much effort, and like talking to people, like, oh, can't bother me to do that. And eventually, I mean, this is kind of out of the blue, but this is more so due to time constraint. He ended up committing suicide in my house. And I remember getting the phone call, and I was like, you know, so my other roommate found him, and he called and was like, you know, so and so passed away. I'm not going to say his name, but so and so passed away. Told me how he did it, and it felt, it was so weird on so many levels because number one, he was one of my best friends. We had been through almost all of sobriety together, and on top of that, when I went into treatment, he was the guy. Like he was the dude. Like when you thought about service, when you thought about AA, my head went to this guy. Like there was nobody else who fit the description better than he did. And it was really eye-opening. It was a time where I just looked at myself and I was like, it's insane how much me and this guy had in common, and that he was capable of doing that. And then it just put everything in perspective for me, which was, I might not feel like I'm capable of something like that right now, but clearly if I was to continue living like this, who knows? You know, I could very well do exactly what he did. Um, and it was, you know, extremely sad. You know, I wanted to be there for his family and everything, but it put a lot of things in perspective. And I walked away with that experience with something that honestly I learned in my first 30 days, which is like, dude, no one is exempt from alcoholism and what happens when we live in our will. Nobody's exempt from it. If you have alcoholism, this needs to be a daily practice. You know, this, like, it's not like I worked the 12 steps one time and I'm graduated. It really is no, like, the reason I do this is not, and this is my opinion, it's not to feel good. And that's like a, you know, a side effect, I suppose, of working a program. It's not to get good stuff. It's because if I don't, I'm going to get drunk or I'm going to die. And everything else is an added bonus, you know, like my life getting better, things like that. It's all great stuff. And maybe it's a way that I can use to reinforce that decision that I make. But it put into perspective that no, like I'm here because this is a life or death thing. And since that, I mean, I've been back to no, I need to pray daily. You know, there's no like, oh, there's just not enough time. You know, like this whole God thing. Oh, what about, like, I don't have time. Like, I don't have that luxury. I don't have the luxury of not being honest about what's going on with me. I just don't have those luxuries. I have to do this. And I think most importantly, in the thing that, you know, YPAA has shown me is service, in all honesty, is what makes my sobriety incredible. You know, I remember there was this one night, this is when I maybe had 3 years sober, and there was this kid who was brand new. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but I just had one of those nights where I was really just connected. I was just feeling it, you know, like kind of on fire. And, you know, I was just having a good time hanging out with this kid who's like fresh off the streets. He looks like shit. Like he's just not having a good time. And I was just saying the dumbest shit you can think of, like making the stupidest inside jokes. There was like this meme that was big at the time, and I kept telling these like 5-minute stories that ended with the meme. Like they weren't even stories; they were just bullshit that I was saying. And I thought that I was annoying this kid. He ended up asking me to sponsor him, and he referenced that night, which all I did was hang out with him. That's it. And he's like, yeah, man, like that night when I saw you just being honestly stupid, I was like, dude, maybe there's like more to this than just not doing drugs. And I think the coolest part about that is, in hindsight, what I take away from that is that I didn't really have much to do with that. Like I took action. I mean, I showed up places. I made decisions to go be of service. All that's true. But I wasn't the one who took an insanely annoying person like me and made me like, I don't know, like people want to be around. You know, I wasn't the one who took my defects and either turned them to assets or helped me let them go. Like that was all my higher power. I just showed up and did the grunt work. You know, that's it. And it's really cool, you know, like over the past 10 years, my experience has just been an amalgamation of looking back at what's happened and what is still happening. And if I'm in the right frame of mind, understanding that I just generally don't have as much to do with that as I seem to think, you know, like hindsight's 2020. I mean, a lot of this stuff just goes back to I show up, I do things that I a lot of the times don't feel like doing, and God does for me what I can't do for myself. And it's been a trip, you know. I mean, even step work, making amends. I mean, a lot of people I had to make amends to did not call me back, and that's fair. I understand. But the ones that I got to do were really cool. They were really, I don't know, freeing. You know, working with the 10th and 11th step, maintaining like a relationship with a higher power. That's enabled me to walk places without that sheer feeling of anxiety. And I want to make sure on time, if I'm like running over, how much more time I have. So just want to make sure that I'm not going too far over. So I'll pause for like 2 seconds. Are we good?
You're thumbs up. I have a little timer.
Okay, perfect. Okay. I'm going to pin you so that I can see this guy. Okay. Um, but yeah, like I think, as I was saying, I mean, this really is a program about a higher power. It's not one about getting good stuff. If that was the case, I probably would have fucked off a long time ago. But that's not what it's about. It really is about, no, like to this day, I'm still the person I was when I came in. Um, and yeah, I wanted to talk about, my experience with Geeky. That's been really cool. So we threw on a conference in Marietta, which was an incredible experience that I got to be a part of. And that was around the time when I was still doing okay before I made the decision of I got this. But at that point I was newer in AA, and there was these people who were like, hey, this is going to be a lot of fun, like whatever. And it's just a cool story of what service did for me. So I went in, like, I had a couple friends and, like, a couple other good things that were fine, but I just found myself going to meetings and I was kind of uncomfortable. Like I didn't feel like I had a real purpose to be there a lot of the time. And I didn't quite understand why. I don't know if anybody's experienced this before or anything like that. And it was interesting because what I found for me in that time was a lot of what I was missing was I wasn't really devoting any type of service to AA. Like I was going to meetings, I was talking in the meeting, but past that, I wasn't really doing much. Getting involved in YPAA and getting involved in AA at really any level of service. What I find and what I found was when I went to meetings, I felt like I was a part of the group now. Like I felt like I had earned my seat weirdly, and it's not that there actually is a mentality to earn your seat, but it's almost like a mental thing. Like if I go somewhere and I take, and I don't think of how I can contribute, what I found was like, it's just over time, I just felt like I wasn't a part of, so with GCYPAA, like we would put on all these events, we would put on, we had a big conference at the end of the day. And, it was an incredible experience because it forced me to talk to people that I normally wouldn't talk to. It forced me to make announcements at meetings. And for me, I don't love public speaking really at all. It's kind of my least favorite thing in the world. And at the time I wasn't very comfortable in AA. So I'd be shaking in my seat and I'd raise my hand like all shaky and all. And I'm like, hey, I'm Zack, I'm an alcoholic, and I'd make the announcement. It was terrifying. And, people would come up and like ask me questions, and it forced me to do things that I normally would not do. And, in AA in general, things like making coffee. It's not the coffee that matters. It's the fact that when I'm doing it, like I'm forcing myself to be in a position to be around people, which for someone like me, it's weird. I'm like a very extroverted person who's terrified of people. Like you guys scare me. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what it is, but like I want you to talk to me, but at the same time, like don't make me talk. Like I just don't want to do that. But it's weird. I mean, that level of service just kind of brought something out of me that I didn't quite know that I had. It brought out a version of myself that was comfortable really going anywhere and doing mostly anything. And it's cool because, I'd read the big book early in recovery, and it's weird. It's almost like I would read the words that it said and like walk away not thinking that those words mattered for whatever reason. Like, go be of service. Like there's this whole chapter to service. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I need to do that too much. Right. And it's like, no, dude, like there's a chapter in the book. What are you talking about? Like that's a big deal, or I'd read this whole God connection thing and like whatever. And it would say things like conscious contact. And I was like, oh, okay. So like 2 times a day, like morning and night, maybe if I find time. And yeah, it was almost like I took the book and I made it my own, pick your own adventure. Which is not. It's a book. It's a textbook. It's one that you look through and you say, okay, so it says do this, bet I'm supposed to go do that. And when I finally did that, lo and behold, everything was good. it was fun. It was awesome, and it still is. So I think with that was a little all over the place. I hope you guys got anything from it, but it looks like I'm out of time. So that's all that I got.